Alright, for a little bit of background information, this all started on Thursday where I wore a shirt that said I Plead the Second and it had a decal of an AR-15, which, if you don't know, is a semi-automatic sporting rifle. And so, with the recent events, a lot of liberal media and the schools are saying that we don't have our rights to wear these shirts and these kind of things. So, as a peaceful protest, from the beginning, I wore that shirt. From when I bought that shirt, I had that intention of using my First Amendment right to wear it inside a school building. And so this all happened when I wore that shirt, and they didn't notice until later in the day. And they told me it's causing a distraction. I was like, no, it's not. Everybody else is cheering me on. No one is showing signs of being fearful in any sort of way. And they're like, it doesn't matter. We told you to take it off. You didn't. That's insubordination. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Friday comes around and I start recording. And so then I asked them, before I started recording, I asked them, do I have my First Amendment right? And they said, no. And so that's when I said, okay, it's a rights issue, and now I'm going to be recording. So that's when I started recording. This is just a little bit of background information for you guys who don't know the current situation.
I can't record this conversation. We're in a public place.
Mr. Kozel.
In the back of the days of no cell phones, right? No cell, yeah. Where you didn't have to worry about anything.
It's just audio.
Jacob, it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to use cell phones like that in school.
You can't record
You can't record.
our conversation.
It's just for my own protection. I mean, I was advocating for my own constitutional rights. I just think it'd be okay if I record this conversation so I could review it later.
We're not gonna have a conversation if you're recording, so
So we will call mom. I'll have mom
come in and we'll talk if that's.
so you can stay in our office. I'll call her right now.
All right. The only reason I'm doing this is because I was using my First Amendment yesterday. That's how I saw it. I was using it as my First Amendment to send. I wasn't walking out of the school. I wasn't breaking many policies. All I wanted to do was wear that shirt and send a message. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to use my First Amendment right in that way. And
But when it causes a disruption to school and people feel unsafe.
I don't think people felt unsafe.
And when we ask you to do something and you don't do it, that's considered insubordination. So
I don't see how a shirt makes people feel unsafe.
you can hang that up online. Okay, thank you. All right, bye-bye. All right, so we'll go walk you down to in-school until she gets here.
All right.
Front desk, just a heads up, I have a parent on the way because I don't know when they get here.
Oh my gosh.
Where's your bag?
I left it in the classroom.
Okay, go ahead and get it and come back down. Oh, there she is. What do you guys find Miss Coleman? She let her old parent is here. She's not in her office now. I know she is. I don't know where she went.
I'm sure she'll be right back.
Oh, I hear her voice. There you are. I just went the opposite way as you. You snuck through the back door.
The circle, yep, I went to the secret door. Mom already here?
She is here already. So, but he's still recording, so we're gonna have him sit out. We'll just talk with mom.
Okay.
It just
I told him he was welcome to join us if he wanted to leave it. I'm in Toronto, but he doesn't want to do that. So. Alright, go ahead, grab a seat. So Mr. Wright, Jacob continues to hit record, so I told him he could leave his phone by Miss Toronto and join us in the meeting, but he doesn't want to do that, so I told him he's not allowed to talk with us then. He just has to sit here.
Yep.
So I'll go get
I'm
him.
not gonna play games here. What's up?
I'm not playing games. I'm just recording this for my own protection of my rights.
We can talk about that later, but actually I'm uncomfortable with you sitting here because other kids' stuff is going to be coming in and out of this office and they have a right to confidentiality. So should we use the back room maybe?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob. No, I don't.
Are we waiting for Mom? Is she coming?
From what I've heard, she's already here.
Okay.
Okay, Jacob, so your options for today, you can give your phone to your mom, and you can stay in school for the day, and we'll get all your homework so you can get caught up on your stuff. Option 2 would just be going home with mom right now.
I would like to have my phone off in the ISS room and hand it to that teacher.
That is never an option. The phone is not supposed to be in there. Up here on the desk off is fine. You could have it at the end of the day. When kids are in the IC for the day, they always leave their phone in this office.
That's protocol. Yeah, it's for every student.
It's weird because the last time I was in ISS, they didn't make me do that.
If it was one period, that may have been the exception. Today is all day.
Well, I'd rather give my mom my phone and I'll stay inside ISS.
That is fine.
Great. We appreciate you making a decision. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
He's still recording, Steve.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Have we done anything that makes you feel threatened, that you feel like you need to record us?
Well, they said yesterday I wore that shirt to use my First Amendment right in a peaceful way, and for my side of the story, for every conflict there's two sides of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's conservative versus liberal for this whole situation that's happening, and so
that's
I'm a conservative
categorization
guy.
of it, right?
Yeah, I'm a conservative, and so I wanted to use my First Amendment right to advocate for my second, and do it in a way that's peaceful and quiet. So I just think it's unfair how I can't wear a t-shirt to advocate for my First Amendment right, but the school will let 3/4 of the students walk out for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't see how that's any. I think it's much more reasonable to have a student with a t-shirt that has a decal of an AR-15 and it says "I Plead the Second." I think that is far more reasonable than to say that students should be allowed to leave for 20 minutes for a walkout.
Okay. So I appreciate you being able to share that with me. And I feel like you and I can have a great conversation with that. I still don't understand what we've done to potentially make you think that you need to record us because we've somehow, like, you need to track what we're saying to you somehow.
At first, it wasn't a big issue, but then Miss Holloman and Miss Colzo started saying that I cannot do this, and so then in my mind it became a rights issue. So that's why I'm recording.
Okay. So I'm not going to get into an argument with you about any of those things. If you ever want to talk about the differences in those two scenarios, because I guess the only thing I'll throw out there is you never really can compare two things. I see the connection that you're making between those two things, but in a later conversation, I would love to share with you how I see them as kind of like apples and oranges, but that's just me, okay? And I know that you can reasonably sit here and have that conversation, so I look forward to doing that. You're gonna have a lot of time in the IC Center today, right? I want you to get work done, but if you have time to reflect, I think, and if you wanted me to come down there with my laptop, we could look up some things about, the history of kind of the disruption to the school day. Let me back up. Remember last Friday we talked about like your First Amendment rights and freedom of speech, and then we talked about what those actually look like in school?
Well, I mean,
That caveat that we discussed of like if it disrupts the school day.
that's why I'm recording so I could remember easily. So
Okay.
that way I could go back and remember what
So-
people said exactly.
Um,
Also, I appreciate you coming on and speaking to me on camera because you're the only person who has done this so far. Everyone
Well-
else won't.
I'm still really uncomfortable, Jacob. You know, and I know that, like, I think we're at a spot where I'm okay with you telling me anything, and I hope you're okay with me sharing my opinion and my feelings. That it's
Yeah, go
uncomfortable. Like, it comes across as a little. I appreciate you explaining it to me, but it still makes people uncomfortable, right? Anybody would feel uncomfortable. So at a later point, happy to have that discussion about the comparison you were making and those two things of rights, and to continue our discussion from last week about freedom of speech overall versus freedom of speech in schools. And if it'll help you remember those sorts of things, there's a couple of like court cases that we could go over too, so that you could see the history of this in school, because I think that's also like a different perspective that staff may have that through no fault of your own, you don't, right? So we've learned all this stuff working in a school, and I think it might help you understand our perspective and like the history of student rights. Does that sound like a deal?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
All right. For now, I think it's unfortunate that you gotta sit in IC, but I also
You gotta do what you gotta do to
gotta do
defend
what you gotta
yourself.
do. And you understand, I think, that the school's gotta do what they gotta do, and so we're at an impasse, and you're
Yeah.
gonna spend the day in the IC. I'll check in on you, because we're kind of gonna miss. I had scheduled. I think I told you yesterday when I ran into you to check in on you this morning. So I'm not going to count this as our check-in. I'll check in with you again. But this has kind of pushed my schedule off a little bit. So I got some stuff to do, and then I'll come back and check in with you, okay? And hopefully we could have those conversations. Again, it's a ongoing conversation, so no big deal. We're not going to cover everything today, but I think it's an ongoing thing that will be really good for you to understand and be able to provide us some feedback on as well. Got it? Cool. Thank you so much.